This week on The Wise Guys.
Okay, like, how can I make my friends? Or, like, how can I get my major declared? Like, it's like we expect these kids to make such huge financial decisions that can impact them, like, 10 years from now. Like, they don't probably even know what a mortgage is, at that rate, let alone, like, their interest rates on their loans are 3 times as much as the national rate.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, my rant point being that I think they know what they're doing. I just don't think they know what exactly it means for
Right.
the future.
For sure. No, I agree with you 100%. Man, that's good. That's really, really good. And my follow-up question is, did you...
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Kevin Anglade, and you are now tuning in to the Wise Guys podcast, brought to you by Flowered Concrete. Check it out.
Yo, what's going on? What's going on? We're back, and we're back, and we're back. This is your boy, Kevin Anglade, and unfortunately, Mark is not here today, but we are the Wise Guys podcast, back for another week with episode 13. Ladies and gents out there in the Wise community, man, today is a very, 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 very big and special episode. For those of you who have been tuned in to our social media and as well as have been tuning into the podcast over our first few weeks of inception, we shouted her out on episode 2, alright, which was Young and Broke Part 1. And then we touched upon her story once again, just a little bit, in Young and Broke Part 2, which was episode 4, with our very first guest, who was Dominique Carson. Shout out to her once again. But today, ladies and gents of the Wise community, Wise Guys, Wise Gals, I have done it. Mark and I have done it. We have actually brought upon the young lady, the young woman, who is right now, as we speak, who's been tearing up America in regards to her story of fighting back against the system, the economic system, the capitalist system that we know today as the United States of America. Alright, so other than from hearing Mark and as well as myself talk about it on the platform, and again, shout out to Mark, I really wish he could have been here. He said that he'll be here today in regards to this interview in spirit, but again, you've heard about her from Business Insider, from NBC News, from People Magazine, alright? Anywhere online in which media outlets have talked about her story, alright? I personally found her on Google, and when I found out about her story, I was blown away. So we had to bring her on the show. So enough of my rambling today, ladies and gents. Please welcome to the show, Mandy Velez. Mandy, please welcome onto the Wise Guys podcast.
Hello! Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I feel so loved.
Definitely, and we feel loved that you took the time, seriously, that you took the time in planning and plotting with Mark and I to get on the show. So Mandy, before we get started, kinda unrelated to what this episode's topic is about, could you please inform the Wise community out there by providing a 30-second pitch synopsis of who you are and what you do and all that jazz?
Sure. So, I'm Mandy. I am a journalist living in New York City. I work for The Daily Beast, which is like a pop culture, news, politics website, doing social media and editing. And yeah, just kind of living life, posting about alpacas on Instagram and finance stuff. Sums it up, basically.
That's excellent. That is so cool. Definitely after the show, we're gonna promote to the Wise community out there in regards to your socials and where we could possibly find you. But Mandy, once again, we're so happy to have you again. As you've heard me mention just now, and also when I was talking to you off the air, your story is one that was and still is a trending hot topic in America today in regards to your student loan story and how you were able to pay it off. And Wise community out there, as you all know, this podcast is geared towards changing your heart, mind, and futures. And on top of that, you know what our mantra is, Wise community. Our mantra is to help millennials who are on the path to success push the roadblocks and challenges away that impede them of succeeding upon their journey. So for Mandy to once again take her time out to speak to us today is a great thing, and it also it shows that she wants to help and how humble she truly is. So again, we appreciate you. So Mandy, I kind of want to get right into it. I don't want to waste any more time. With this first segment, I want to talk about high school to college, okay? So your situation, your story from high school to college, if you don't mind. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, excellent. So, Mandy, first and foremost, how did you get here in regards to your senior year in college? What was your experience like transitioning to college during that time, and how did your student loans get upon your radar?
So, I actually had a really hard time from high school to college. Like, the application process was easy. I did really good in school. I was an A student, honor roll, and AP classes and all that jazz. But when it came time to actually, decide where to go and look at the FAFSA and the, student loan disbursement and stuff like that, it was actually really disheartening. My family, this was during the recession. I graduated high school in 2009. And my family was hit really hard. My parents had actually been one of the people to lose their house, in forbearance. And so any money that we had saved up, especially for my college, was gone. I'm the oldest in my family, so I was the first one to experience this part in the school journey. And so, it was really disheartening when, I would get into these really great schools, and I just, would be so excited, and my mom would be heartbroken because I wouldn't be able to go. Like, we just physically could not afford it financially.
Right.
Even with, a lot of the schools did offer financial aid, which I was so grateful for. But it would still be a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars that, we just didn't have laying around. And so at the time, I was 17 going on 18. I'm younger for my grade, or I was anyway. And I don't know, I was just kind of bitter about it. I was like, can I just go and we'll put it all on loan and figure it out later? And
right.
So my mom was looking out for me then by saving me from having even more debt, which is kind of unbelievable to think about, considering I had, ended up with over 100 at the end.
Yeah.
Of it all. Yeah, so it was hard. So I ended up going to a state school my freshman year and then transferred to the University of Pittsburgh for my sophomore through senior year.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where everything kind of wrapped up and how I got to the number that I did. It was originally $75,000 in student loans, but then because of interest, it ballooned to over 100.
That is interesting. Now, Mandy, if you don't mind me asking you a curveball question here. I didn't have this in my notes, but I just wanted to ask you this. Could you please explain out there to the listeners? Again, this won't. I usually would say knock on wood, but this won't affect you because you fully crushed it, right? But in an alternative, well, that's not a good word. In an alternate, there we go. In an alternate reality, had you not paid off all your student loans and you would have just went the conventional route of, according to my notes, paying the $300 per month that you were designated of paying at the beginning, and you said that interest was accruing and piling up. So let's say had you paid off, you were in the process of paying for about 30, 35, 40 years. How much? I mean, if you could just throw out an absurd number out there, how much of student loans do you think you would have paid by student loans end if you could just contribute and let me know?
Yeah, so I'm weird, and I actually kind of calculated a rough estimate of this number, and I would have paid likely an extra $96,000.
Oh my gosh!
Over that time, yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
So you mean to tell me that you paid off $102K and you would have paid off $96,000 more? So essentially double of what you paid off in this what 5-6 years time span?
Yeah, if only paying the minimums with the interest rates that I had, yes, it would have been double. I would have paid overtime. Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind me asking you, what do you think that says? And again, we're a very well-rounded show, but we're not glued towards politics or anything like that. But what do you think that says about this country in regards to education and how it sets up students, especially students that come from impoverished communities or communities in which they're first gen within their families to go to college, or they're just students that are first gen in the sense that their parents, such as yours and mine, migrated from other countries or third world countries to come here to provide their child with better education?
Yeah, I think it says that at this point in time, our country kind of sees higher education as a business, and something that other third-party people, like Navient, Sally Mae, are exploiting. Like interest rates are twice, 3 times, 4 times higher than some mortgage rates for people. And so I think that the fact that it is this kind of like profitable sector that puts disadvantaged people, at a higher disadvantage is really sad, and it's super exploitive. It's like almost like punishing people for just trying to like better themselves and achieve their dreams, which is literally like the opposite of what the American dream is. It's like you're supposed to be rewarded for, trying to be better and like go after what you want in life, not saddled with like hundreds of thousands of dollars debt.
Right. Excellent. Ladies and gents, as I said on episode 2 of the podcast, I was, as of earlier this year, $20,000 in debt in regards to my master's degree. And again, thankfully, I was covered for my bachelor's degree because, usually when you go to CUNY schools in New York City, when you get that TAP, it usually covers all of your tuition. But again, the master's degree was when I, had the unfortunate opportunity of taking out in regards to loans. And if it wasn't for Teach for America and doing my 2-year services in Teach for America, I would never have, gotten the chance to cut down my loan debt from $19K to $15K within the span of 2.5 years. But thank you. I mean, but you're saying that, and I'm really jealous of you. Like, wow, like 102K. Like, I was talking to Mark. So, Mandy, I was talking to Mark on episode 2, and I was saying to him, like, man, like, I sliced, mine from 19K to 15K, and looking at yours, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I need to get there. There's things I need to sacrifice, put aside in order to get there and whatnot. And, we were just conversing, going back and forth. And he brought up something that was very interesting to me. And I had not come across this until I further delved into your story and continued my research. What Mark said was that, well, we don't know Mandy's entire situation. We don't know whether she had roommates. We don't know if she was living on her own. We don't know who she was staying with at the time that allowed her to, take more upon herself in terms of humbling herself and, probably like living beneath her means for a couple of years in order to knock this debt out. Could you talk about that for a second and kind of give that perspective?
Absolutely. And I just want to say that, it's awesome that I can be inspiring to a lot of people, but also like I don't want people to look and say, oh my gosh, like I can never get there. Exactly what Mark was saying, every person's individual journey and, the things that they can sacrifice or not sacrifice are different. So I think you could take away like little tips or like motivation, but, your journey is yours and you'll get there like in your time. So I think that's really important to talk about. And so for me, like, I always lived with roommates when I lived in the city. I lived with an ex in the beginning of my journey, and I live with a current partner now. So having people to split rent with was really great. Rent in New York, like my rent was never under like $1,000. So that's kind of like, even with roommates, it's like relative. My parents did pay for my cell phone bill. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, but I wasn't one of those people who like, go on like Instagram and they're like, you're paying off all my debt and thanks mom and dad for letting me live at home for 6 years. Like I've never lived at home as a working adult. I always, I did live with roommates, was really helpful. But I think the thing that made the difference with me and made my life a little bit easier in this process was my salary. You know, and I see a lot of privilege in that. It's so hard to survive, let alone pay off debt, when you don't have a steady income. And I never once took that for granted. And so, like, I never will tell people, like, oh, if I can do it, you should be able to do it. Because, you know, what I had, not everyone can have.
Absolutely.
So having that, yeah, it just really made all the difference. And also, not having children, you know, I have a lot of family members that are younger, friends that do have kids, and I think it would probably have made it a lot harder to do some of, like, the side gigs, you know, that I was doing, or even maybe, like, negotiate at work for more money, like, for bias purposes. I don't know. So I feel like those two things were, like, my quote-unquote privilege in this situation. But that doesn't mean it's not impossible. I just think it made my journey, you know, unique to what it was, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, most definitely, for sure. And again, like, wise community out there, wise guys and wise gals, it's very, very important to know that before you look at someone else's success or someone else's struggles or journey towards their success in terms of paying off their student loans or paying off credit card debt or whatever, you know, have you in that situation, you must also understand that their struggle, their journeys, their circumstances is not yours. Like, you have to understand that. If you cannot fathom that and process that, then you will always get caught up in being stagnant, complacent, and just frustrated, because it is not your story and it is not your struggle. You have to adapt and adjust to your own struggle. Don't you agree?
Exactly. Oh, 100%. There's a quote, actually, that kind of speaks to this that I really like, and it's something like, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll think its whole life it's stupid. And I think that's really important to remember. It's like, you can't apply, like, someone else's journey to yourself, because, like, again, all our circumstances are different, so you just kind of have to find your magic formula, like the thing that, you know, makes you happy and makes you successful.
Right. Ladies and gents, once again, we got a great wise gal in the house today by the name of Mandy Velez. I'm so happy to have you on. So Mandy, we're going to, for sure, we're going to move on to segment 2 now. And you actually unofficially introduced it. Today's second segment is called Welcome to New York City. All right. Welcome to New York City. So you're originally from Philadelphia, yes? Mind sharing about that?
Yeah, not West Philadelphia, born and raised, but Philadelphia, born and raised.
Okay. Cool.
It's been really fun. Yeah, I grew up here up until I left for college, and then I, you know, came back home and was like, you know, doing that whole thing. But I really like Philly a lot, and I'm a huge cheesesteak enthusiast. So if you ever visit, I can give you the best recommendation. No,
for sure. Philly's a great city. I actually go there quite often. I have family on my father's side that lives there, so I'm in Philly quite often, probably at least once or twice a year. Very, very cool city. No, for sure. So again, welcome to New York City, right? What brought you over to New York City? So the question I have prepared here for you today is, by the time you graduated from the University of Pitt, did you realize that you were in a hole in terms of debt that would be hard in regards to you to get out of? Like, what did you think in regards to all of that, especially living in New York City? Because you didn't leave New York, you stayed. Well, you moved to New York to work, but you never turned back to go back to Philly. You stayed in New York.
Right, yeah. So, like, I never saw myself as, like, a New York person. Like, you know, I know a lot of people that are like, I'm going to make it to New York someday, you know, and me, I just kind of went where the job that I wanted to do was. In my case, that was media and journalism. So that's kind of what brought me here. And when I graduated, I definitely panicked a little bit, because I not only had to balance, like, finding a job and, like, paying rent, but also finding a job that was, like, enough to pay rent and my loans, without going crazy. Because I could have found a job, you know, in Philly and been with my parents, but I very much wanted to be, like, in the media scene, so to speak. Like, you know, it's New York, it's where everything's happening. So that's kind of, like, why I was even more motivated to, like, make it work.
Right. No, that's excellent. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read out this tweet that I'm sure you are very well familiar with and you remember. trying to get it to load up right now.
Was it like the lone one with the funeral?
I think so. I'm still waiting for it to load up. Here it is. Okay. So, matter of fact, there's a couple of things. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read a couple of these if you don't mind.
By all means.
Okay, here we go. So, all right, wise community out there. It's going to be a bit of a rant. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read a few. This is from Mandy Velez's Twitter page herself. And I know we said we were going to, and we are going to shout out her socials at the end, but if you want to look at her socials right now, you can. Twitter, at least, is at Mandy_Velez. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So she said on August 2nd, 2019, at approximately 4:12 a.m., good morning, I just paid off my student loans, all $102,170.54 of it. After 6 years, I am finally free. And she got 2,518 likes and 51 retweets off of that. And then she proceeded to say, ladies and gents, here's a list of every side hustle I did to contribute to this payoff in no particular order. Freelance writing, mystery shopping, taking surveys, dog walking, cat sitting, child sitting, background TV work, literally overnight after work, which we will talk about, social media consulting. Yes, it was exhausting. Yes, I paid it with all of my own money. Yes, it would have been harder if I were not an able person with a solid full-time job or a supportive partner and family who fed me when all I could afford was soup or eggs for dinner every day. I am so grateful. I gained a lot from having this burden, but I lost a lot too. The ability to have saved earlier for my future, my family, peace of mind, to name a few. My wish would be that no one else would ever have to bear it. Mandy, please, whether it's tweet 1, tweet 2, tweet 3, or out of order, however you'd like, could you please expound upon all of this? This is remarkable, very profound.
Thank you. Yeah. So I posted that tweet like a few minutes, I think, or an hour or so after I made my last payment, and it just felt so good to like announce it to the world. Like I had been working so hard, and I just wanted to like get it out there because then it was like more real, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, now everybody else knows about it. And then I kind of wanted to like explain myself because again, like I wasn't one of those people that everyone assumes that pays off debt that kind of like lives at home the whole time.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but as you can tell, I worked a lot of side gigs.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make it very clear how much work went into that. And so I listed them out. You know, I had a lot of people asking me, like, how did you do that? Like, what did you do? So that was, like, my way of kind of getting it all out there. And it's funny, like, during my journey, I actually had, like, a little notebook, and every new side gig I would do, I would just, like, write it down. And the list got really long, and I actually thought it was hilarious how long and weird it was. So that's why I wanted to post that. And then lastly, the tweet about like not wanting anyone else to go through it. A big question that people ask is like, do I support student loan forgiveness? And not to get political at all, but I do support it because, you know, just because I am out of it and I did what I had to do for me doesn't mean it didn't really suck. And so I wouldn't want anyone else to have to experience, you know, all the awfulness of what it really takes to pay off that amount of debt in this country.
No.
So yeah, that's kind of like the abridged version.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Man, there's just so much to unpack here. What really caught me as really profound was when you said, you know, you gained a lot from having this burden, but you also lost a lot too. The ability to have saved earlier for your future, your family, peace of mind, to name a few. You know, I think that's so important, Mandy, and to kind of kind of like sideline and get off track for a quick second. This show is geared once again. This show is geared towards the self-improvement. This show, Mandy. It's an educational show. It's really, Mark and I, we don't have this show or this platform in order to just kind of like, ramble about, pop culture or what's going on in the day, whatnot. This show is like to better the lives of millennials. Mark is an investor and an entrepreneur, and he does a whole bunch of things on the side. Myself, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, so we have, these very different contrasting interests, but also they all still fall upon one and the same, because, we all are trying to pursue that American dream, right? And so are the listeners as well. So we want to make sure that, with this show, that we're able to, not only inform and educate the masses of millennials out there, but also to inspire them, upon their journey to bettering their lives. And so, which is why we wanted to have you on the show, Mark and I, very badly, is because we wanted to show that, we're not only talking from our perspective, we're talking from someone who has such a rich, profound story and perspective such as you. So that way, when they hear this, they're like, wow, like if she did it, then I could do it too. Because again, like oftentimes, I think a lot of young millennials right now, Mandy, feel trapped, and myself included. We talk about it on the show all the time, Mark and I, and we feel as if like, okay, so for example, I don't, I'm not asking, but I'm thinking we're probably around the same age, because I graduated high school in 2009 and as well as college in 2013. Yeah, so class of 09, class of 13. Same with you. I have a partner right now, and we're always constantly talking about the future and having kids and getting married and starting a life. But it's just like sometimes you just feel as if like you're in a hamster wheel and you're running up and down with no ways of getting out due to your salary, due to things that you may want to do, whether it's take a vacation or luxuries and things like that. But it's so hard because of the fact that this student loan debt is like, I think right now 1.6 trillion to like 2.2 overall, and it's really discouraging, because it's really gross, because right now you have people who only believe that college is the way, and again, they're not wrong for it, right? But I think it's something to be said in which people go to college and they take the initiative upon themselves to live a better life, and then they essentially end up being more financially downtrodden than before. I don't know.
Exactly.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Like growing up, I come from a Puerto Rican working class family. Mm-hmm. So it's like college was the ticket out. Like it was the way to do better, and to like succeed in ways that your parents and grandparents or great grandparents never could. Yeah. And that came at any cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so debt was kind of seen as just a means to an end. Yeah. Right? It's like the price that you have to pay. But, when I graduated, and like you were saying about, your partner being my partner, like, he doesn't have any debt.
Right.
So that kind of opened my eyes to like, wow, like, this isn't just like a thing that people have to deal with. Like, this is just a thing that people who are less fortunate have to deal with. Yeah. And that's kind of messed up.
It is, yeah.
And it's like their lives are the ones on hold in the majority of, cases of people with large student loan debt. Like, saving for a house, it's like, and so like this cycle tends to continue in families. It's like they want to get ahead, like you were saying, but then they're delayed, 10, 20, 30 years until they're done paying debt, so they can really start, creating like a bigger, either emergency fund or like nest egg, and it's just such a cyclical thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, Mandy, I'm sure, just hearing your story and hearing what you're saying throughout this whole entire show, I'm sure you can relate. I actually just said this a while back on Instagram in the comment section, because again, we were talking about student loans just a little bit, just kind of getting the audience real interested in the topic. And I was sharing with someone who commented, because I think he said his family migrated from a country in which they believed, college was the way to go, and, they force-fed him with that information, and he decided to do it. But he said that, he knows knows people, like right now as we speak, he knows people who've gone to obtain their master's degrees, and they're cashiers, and in certain places. And when he said that, I couldn't believe it. It just really just like ripped my heart out and broke my heart. And I responded to him saying, look, I get it, I understand the struggle. And I said to him, I said, it's nothing more than like, even with myself, my parents, they worked really hard, coming from the third world country of Haiti, and they came here to provide, myself and my younger sister, with a better way of living and a better way of life. And I remember as early as 7th and 8th grade in junior high school, my dad telling me, go and get your master's degree, master's. And I'm like, man, like in middle school my dad was saying this, and then looking, and it's just like looking back, it's just like, and again, this isn't information that's new or like that I'm actually revealing. Like anyone who is following me and who even checks my blog, they know I've written about this in the past. Like, it sucks when you can say, hey, I've got my master's degree, hey, I've traveled, I've been to Africa, I've been all these places, I write books, I publish books, and doing all these cool things, but it's just like, but guess what, I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, I'm still broke, and I'm still, in student loan debt, and I'm trying my best to get out of it and get out of credit card debt, or whatever the case may be. So it's just like, you never know, what's actually, going on with the person. And even if your optics and your perspective of them is, wow, this guy or this girl, she's very successful, I wish I could only be like them. It's like, don't judge, because you don't even know the half of it. People could be more educated than you or more privileged, and you don't know how much they're struggling just like you,
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important that, you were saying about like a master's degree as seen as like the thing to get. And it's like, if you don't need it, if you're a career path, like, you don't need it. It's like, seeing it as like a status symbol, so to speak, can obviously like do more harm than good.
Very true.
And people are trying to push, quote unquote, blue collar jobs, like, and just electrical work and, construction, and I think that's awesome. And I think we need to like kind of respect those professions more.
Yes.
As their problems, and then on the other hand too, like degrees are invaluable, like especially to families of immigrants, as yourself and, my family, they're invaluable, and if that's something that you really want, like, go for it. But I think the understanding needs to be that, the onus shouldn't be on the person to like change their dreams to like survive, but the institutions, to help do what they were supposed to do, which is get people ahead,
right,
and not hold them back.
Absolutely. So, walk with me here in this frame of thinking. It's sort of almost like an oxymoron, or even ironic, in terms of like this system, this implemented system of accelerating and getting people to push through the pipeline of higher education is instead working in reverse and working opposite of what it was intended to do, in terms of financially institutionalizing people and crippling them, and doing exactly what it said it wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll give you a quick example, like, of me just seeing it play out in real life.
Sure.
So, like, my partner, he doesn't have student loans. A lot of people he grew up with don't have student loans. Good for them, whatever.
Yeah.
But, one of his friends was able to buy an apartment in New York City a year or two ago, which is, like, if you know anything about New York City real estate, like, that's not cheap.
Not at all. Not at all, listeners. Not at all.
Right. So it's like this, at the time, I think he was like 26 or 27. So this 27-year-old now has equity in real estate because he was, he didn't have student loans to worry about first. Whereas someone who maybe graduated with him the same age, as myself, hasn't even started to stash money away for that kind of investment in the future because of loans. And it's like, it's just an example of like, it's so simple but so profound at like how impactful having loans can be in like the timeline of one's life and like their future and like their family and stuff like that.
Right.
Sorry, I just got really deep.
No, that's perfect. Oh my gosh. Once again, wise community, wise guys, wise gals, shout out to our guy Mark. Shout out to the co-host Mark, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today but really wanted to be here. He's here in spirit. But I say that again because, Mandy, if Mark was here, Mark would say to you, preach, amen, amen, because everything you just said is something that he abides by and he totally firmly believes in. Mark didn't finish school. He dropped out, but he has been very, very successful over the past 6-7 years in terms of working for himself, being self-employed and going that route. But he is heavily into real estate and into the markets and everything you said in regards to equity and having buying the apartment and having it as an asset, as an equity. Mark, I'm sure if he was here, obviously he'd articulate it better than I can, but he would definitely just be gushing over everything you just said. So shout out to your partner's friend. That's really, really good. And that's what we need to be working towards. Things of that, nature, things of that stature, and things that aren't financially, keeping a hold on us to the point where we can't make any moves and have a natural level of progression within our lives.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to put it, like a natural thing of progression. It's like that's what society is built on, like that's what we're supposed to do, but it kind of feels like the whole student loan thing is like a wrench in everything. Yeah,
for sure. Now I read on Forbes that this is really, really funny because I just thought this was like a cool fun fact. I read on Forbes because they were a bit more descriptive and particular about your situation. So to kind of sidetrack but still be on track at the same time, you were also an extra on SVU and As They Filmed Overnight. That's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, I was. I literally was looking up gigs to make money, and someone, I think on Reddit or something, was like, yeah, I do extra background work in New York City. So I went to the casting place, and I signed up, and they would literally send you different shows to be on. And they sent me SVU, and I was like, oh my god, yes. I don't even care if they pay me for this one. I'm going.
Right.
So I ended up going, and I literally stood behind Ice-T in the scene.
Wow.
And so in the actual show, you could see me behind Ice-T.
Jealous much.
I know. I'm done. I don't need to do anything else in my life.
Yeah, forget the loans. That's a childhood dream right there. You know how many of us, especially as millennials, grew up on Law and Order SVU marathons?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
6 days from school, whatever. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Wow. Shout out to you. For sure. Yeah. That too. Oh my gosh, shout out to you though. That's really cool. Hey, at least you got, I mean, it wasn't a lot, but at least you had a little fun in there. You got something accomplished with that too. That's pretty cool.
It was hard sometimes because the shoots, I remember, oh my god, my first shoot was overnight, and I'm so naive, and I'm thinking, okay, it'll just be 4 hours. I'll be out of here by 11. Oh my god, I didn't leave until the next day at 10 a.m.
Wow.
People were sleeping under tables.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy, yeah. But it was fun,
Wow.
Give and take.
My gosh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I even saw, I even read within that it led to the SVU, reference, but it said that, you even stayed up 24 hours at a time sometimes, and I just couldn't believe it. I was really taken aback. I was like, wow, the kind of determination, grit, and persistence and diligence one must have in order to crush the kind of debt she had. It showed in your work ethic,
Yeah, thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, it was hard. It was, I remember it only happened, I think, 2 or 3 times, the 24-hour thing, but when it did, oh my god, it was really hard. There was a situation where I had my day job, and then I had a shoot starting at 6.
Right.
And then I would stay through all night, and then the next day, I would either go into work or I would have a dog walking job, or 2 dog walking jobs.
Yeah.
So it was hard.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong. You earned a BA in English and Communications, right?
Yep, I got a bachelor's of arts, but my majors were English and comm.
Excellent. Shout out to you once again. I got a master's and bachelor's in English as well, so another English connection.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so Mandy, I want to segue to my next question for you. Let's see here. Well, before I even ask the question, I kind of want to ask you this. What would your advice be? What would your advice be to our current generation right now that's still struggling with their student loan debt, or the kids in college right now that are preparing to get out soon enough, in terms of how do they go about disciplining themselves to keep their head down? Because let's be honest, Mandy, this is a really hard time for people to kind of keep their head down and stay focused on what they're doing and discipline themselves in order to accomplish something because of social media. You see everyone taking that grand vacation, going to Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, London, Cuba, Mexico, Dubai, Australia, you name it. And our generation is so caught up in the superfluous that they see on social media and extravagant that a lot of the times people don't understand that it's just people maybe flaunting what they have or what you perceive that they have, but you don't know how much money those people probably put themselves in debt to go on that trip, paying or maxing out their credit cards to do certain things or whatever the case may be. But the reason why I bring this up is because how could they not find themselves being lured into that temptation and to literally do as what you did and just kind of just like toughed it out in regards to living below or within their means in order to get this student debt crush done? Like what would you say to them?
Yeah, totally. So first, to be 100% transparent, I paid off my loans in 6 years, and I did go on trips in that time.
Okay, cool.
However, 99% of the time, it was either like a tax return that I used just to get mental health.
Okay,
Yeah, or like a press trip for work, because I'm a journalist, so I would write about some places, which is a really nice way to see the world. Anyway,
right.
But however, I never put it on credit, and I always cash flowed it, which means I always made sure that the cash was either in my bank account or in hand, ready to pay for everything up front.
Right.
For when I did, go. But I would say, looking back, I would have gone away less because I probably would have gotten my loans paid off a little bit faster. When I did get really serious in January, I paid off $32,000 in 8 months, and my last $32,000, and that was due to not spending money on travel, not spending money on going out to eat, or stuff like that. And it's funny because it did show on my Instagram. I used to have a food Instagram, and literally I didn't have anything to post because I wouldn't go out anymore. And I can't honestly stress enough, if you do want to pay off loans fast, or get ahead on them, cutting out that stuff will help immensely.
Right.
And it'll also help with the interest rate thing, because every day, those interest rates bring it up a few dollars.
Yeah.
It really adds up.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of my advice would be, depending on your timeline, really think about having some discipline and saying no and really embracing the FOMO from social media.
Right, absolutely. Wow, for sure. So, Wise Community, everything I said on episode 2 about, I don't know, maybe I exaggerated or I just didn't know the whole truth. Everything I said on episode 2 about Mandy just being in the hole for 6 years straight and not going on vacation at all, just scratch all that out. No, it's fine. It's not your fault. Come on, even myself as a writer and a bit of a journalist myself, I'd say, because I've had experience with it, being a journalist in school. We're only able to do what we find in our research. So if the media outlets are not speaking upon it and they're not conveying and showing that, then there's only so much we can do. So I had no clue, but it's great. No, seriously though, it's honestly refreshing to get this clarification from you, because the listeners are getting it not from the middleman, but from out, like directly out of the horse's mouth. So you saying that allows them to know exactly, oh, okay, so like I don't have to just be like all somber and woe is me and just kind of fester in my, you know, negativity. I can like really like, you know, take my tax return and, you know, make a, you know, quick little 3-4 day getaway, go on a quick vacation and not totally just be miserable.
Exactly, and like, listen, I think it's a balance. Like, a lot of people follow Dave Ramsey. You know, I used to listen to him too during this journey, and like, he's 100% against vacation during like paying off debt. And I get that, because if you really don't spend any money elsewhere, like, you can kill debt so fast. Like, so many people would be surprised how fast you can do that if you don't go away on vacation. So I think that if paying off debt as quickly as possible is the goal, then yes, like, don't go on vacation. However, like, I don't fault you for thinking that at all. Nobody did write about that, and I actually had a lot of trolls. Like, they would look at my Instagram and like they scrolled back over the last 6 years and saw some of the places I had went to, and they were kind of like, what is going on, blah blah blah. But I'm glad I got to explain myself. Like, they were tax return checks that I was like, okay, this is going to be like my one time a year, like, self mental health thing that I do. Yeah, so, but then again, when I started in January and paid off $32,000 in 8 months, the only traveling that I did was already paid for the year before, or through work. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to get rid of debt fast, or if you have really high interest rates.
Right.
Because that is counterintuitive. Every day that you're not paying them down, you're going to pay twice as much. That's a good thing to think about.
That's a bar right there. Every day that you're not paying it down, you're going to pay twice as much. I have to be sure to put that on the Instagram when we put this episode up, for sure. Yeah, but man, those god darn trolls, like, they're always trying to find something negative to say, or trying to find like a hole or a fallacy within the whole entire framework of the story.
Exactly.
But no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I get it, like, there are people, you know, who, and I acknowledge my privilege, and like, I think in the articles I do acknowledge my privilege, like, you know, I have a great job, you know, I was able to live with roommates, etc., like, I had a tax return, but I just don't want people to paint me as like one of those people that, you know, had a lot of help, because I didn't. Like, I went on vacation, but that's because I, you know, worked my ass off to get that tax refund, I guess. Yeah, no, absolutely. So never judge a book by its cover, and it doesn't erase like the hard work that I put into. Absolutely. Well, we're glad that you got a chance to come on the show and to, you know, kind of take control back of the narrative and to convey, you know, your story and what really happened. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you. For sure. So we have a couple more questions for you left. So the next question I wanted to ask you is, are college students aware of the debt they put themselves in when they get accepted to colleges? Again, are college students, or maybe I should rephrase this, are incoming college students, essentially freshmen, aware of the debt they put themselves in when they get accepted to college? So, speaking from my personal experience, because I don't know, you know, how everyone else is, but I think they're aware of it. I was aware of it. I just didn't know or put two and two together of like what it actually would mean for me when I graduated. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know what I really thought, but from what I remember, I think I was like, oh, like, everybody has student loans. I'll just have like a $300 a month payment, and like, I'll be done in 10 years, and like, it'll be fine. Like, I did not know anything about interest. Right. I did not know that interest or minimum payments could be higher than $300. Like, I didn't realize that, like, that money should and could have been used to saving for a house. Like, I was 17 and 18. I wasn't thinking about a house. You know, like, I was thinking about, okay, like, how can I make my friends? Or, like, how can I get my major declared? Like, it's like we expect these kids to make such huge financial decisions that can impact them like 10 years from now. Like, they don't probably even know what a mortgage is, you know, at that rate, let alone like their interest rates on their loans are 3 times as much as the national rate.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, my rant point being that I think they know what they're doing. I just don't think they know what exactly it means for
Right.
the future.
For sure. No, I agree with you 100%. Man, that's good. That's really, really good. And my follow-up question is, did your parents go into debt as well? You know, they usually have like the College Plus loans and things of that nature. So did your parents accrue any debt at that point in time?
I think my mom did have a Parent Plus loan for me, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that they took one out for my little brother, who also has a lot of debt as well. He's about to graduate from school.
Oh, well, shout out to him in terms of graduation.
Yeah, he's really great. So, and I tell him, I'm like, do you know how lucky you were to have me as a big sister with this stuff?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think they maybe had taken like one Parent Plus loan. But other than that, no. Like, they just had their own crap to deal with, you know,
Right.
like the house and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why, like, I never asked them for money one time since I graduated. And I think it's okay to ask your parents for money if they have it. I'm not shaming that at all. You know, I'm just making that point because I want people to know that, like, I'm not entitled. Like, I don't expect anyone to do anything for me, and like my goal was to always like take care of what I need to take care of, because they really didn't have it. Like, they would have made it work for me, but it would have been at their expense, and I didn't want to do that.
Wow, yeah, for sure. It's interesting. Man, I probably should have gave my story prior to you saying that, but my sister, at the time when she was in high school, she had a friend. She had a friend who was in her senior class, graduating class, and she had gotten accepted to Howard University, HBCU, obviously, ladies and gents.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not familiar with Howard, HBCU down in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And I think she got into, or her major was dentistry or something like that. Yeah, it was definitely in the medical field. If it wasn't dentistry, it was something. I'm not sure, guys, but it was definitely something within the medical field. And so she got accepted to Howard, but I think, Howard was throwing these financial aid packages at her, and she only got minimum amount of grants and scholarships within her financial aid package, and the majority of it was a student loan, like a couple student loans. I think one for herself and one for her mom. And her mom was the only person she was living with at the time who could financially support her. And her mom told her, and mind you, her mom, again, I'm not trying to put this girl down, she's doing really well right now, but her mom was sick, and her mom was saying, look, I can't really afford this. If I pay for this, it's going to cripple me. And she was like, Mom, look, this is about me right now. Like, you wanted me to go to college, you wanted me to follow my dreams, pursue my dreams, so this is what I want to do. And so, reluctantly, her mom ended up, filling out the Parent Plus loan and sending her down there, whatnot. And she did her due diligence. She graduated, and I think now she's in med school or something of the sort. And I think now either she's living in D.C. still, or she's living just outside of D.C. in Maryland, and she's prospering. She's doing really, really well. And and I think she's married and she has a family, but and again, I'm not trying to speak bad about her. I think I'm more so using her story as a figure of representation in terms of desperation when people want to do things because of the allure and the prestige of a name in regards to a school, and wanting to go there and live out your dreams, but then at the other end, not taking into account how it may affect your parents, your guardians, your loved ones, people that look out for you, people that always dish out money in order to help you. I'm curious. The reason why I bring up that story, Wise Community, is because I wanted to get Mandy's perspective on that, and more so in particular about what is the motivating factor that attracts children to schools of big brands, prestigious backgrounds, and the historical that makes them wanting to go there, and at all costs too, right? Like literally, like not caring, what their financial situation is, or even taking the time out to understand it. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's like culturally a thing, right? Like, it's what your parents are told, what their parents told them to kind of get ahead.
Yeah.
And so that all costing, I think, parents feel like a responsibility to help their child succeed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, a lot of people having this conversation tend to, like, put the onus again on, like, the people taking out the loans. And so instead of, like, examining, okay, well, why are we putting families in a position to have to, like, put everybody out in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why can't college be affordable, or why can't the rates be appropriate, like truly appropriate to families?
Yeah.
And so that's like one part of it. And then the second part, with the whole like name, I want to say name brand, but there's no like University of Nike or anything.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But Nike, please don't come after me.
For sure.
But name schools. Like I certainly fell into this trap because like there's this idea of like the more prestigious, like the more chance you have at like getting a job. But I think that's honestly like the biggest myth in higher education.
Right.
Like I went to University of Pittsburgh, and it's a very good school. But it was in state for me. It wasn't Harvard by any means. No offense, Pitt. And I still ended up where I ended up. And
right.
Do I think it's a little bit easier for people that go to bigger schools to slide into jobs? Yes. But I don't think it's worth going into debt over. Instead of like going into debt, maybe like put an extra time into, internships.
Right.
Or, networking and stuff like that. And, like, does it suck that the system, again, has people doing that just because of a name? Yes. But I think with the state that we're at right now, I would not recommend going to, like, a big name school just to get to a place that, you can with hard work, you can very well get to at, like, a, lesser known school, so to speak.
Yeah. Mandy, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to play devil's advocate and give you a bit of a pushback, if you don't mind.
Sorry. Yeah, sure.
For sure. So if you don't mind me bringing this up, some may argue, though, that the purpose for them, I don't know if this is the case, but the purpose for them in attending a lot of these prestigious schools, or these schools that have these big names and in terms of its history backing them, is that they will be able to tap into a network that they couldn't have imagined or dreamed of in regards to their field, especially if the school they plan on attending or attend specialize in whichever career field or interest that they plan on going into. So what is your thoughts about that in regards to this whole idea of people going to these schools because they know that they could possibly get a lot out of it in terms of networking, right? Like, if I went to Harvard, maybe I'll meet the next founder of Facebook Part 2, right? A la Mark Zuckerberg and things of that nature, instead of going to City College or Brooklyn College in New York, or a Montclair University, which is obviously a real small state school in New Jersey. Your thoughts on that?
I'm a data person, right? Like, I'm into seeing actual facts. I don't have the data to support that for or against that going to a lesser school will make it harder or will give you a lesser network.
Right.
I mean, yeah. If you go to Harvard, you're going to have the Harvard network, or if you go to Columbia, Stanford, whatever, but there's no correlation between those networks showing out on an individual basis, jobs, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I'll give you an example.
Sure.
and maybe I'm just an outlier, I don't know, but I got my first job when I graduated at a digital media company.
Mm-hmm.
I was there a year. I was from the University of Pittsburgh. Most people that were there working with me were from colleges of all different kinds of, backgrounds and name, status, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My intern was from Brown. Like, my intern.
Wow.
Like, my school, didn't even make it in, the Big Ten division. And, my intern was, from an Ivy League.
Yeah.
And I think, and another example, Columbia, I know a lot of students from journalism who, go to Columbia to get their master's degree because of, like you said, that network. But it doesn't mean, a network doesn't mean that the jobs are going to be there. Mm-hmm. And the network doesn't mean that you're going to do really well at your craft or ace that interview.
Right.
So it might get more feet in the door, but I don't think it's enough to say you should go into $100,000, $200,000 worth of debt over it.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think, for sure. I think a lot of people, such as my sister's friend and, people of that nature, I think what ends up happening is they believe that, going to schools that provide such an allure in regards to its prestige and its historical backgrounds and, fraternities and all of these things, is going to be the driving factor towards them landing that dream job, towards them being able to pay back their loans and at an accelerated rate and things of that nature. So I think what ends up happening is that people get these, I don't want to say warped ideas, but they get these incomplete ideas at the tender ages of 17, 18, 19, or even, heading into their 20s that, this is why I need to be here, because if I'm not there and I'm attending a local small city or state school, then I am just going to be irrelevant and I'm going to be among the everyday working class working at these menial, small, tiny jobs that people deem as irrelevant and no one cares about.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, will you have to work maybe a little bit harder to stand up in the resume pile in the beginning? Yes,
right.
You will. And I don't like that. That's the case because of a name of a school. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
Agreed.
And, this is kind of how I see the position that higher education has to kind of put people in.
Yeah.
It's you have to decide between a I keep saying brand, a big name school and $200,000 in debt versus a small name school and a smaller network. I think that's just something that people shouldn't have to think about when deciding they should go to school. I think they should go to school to the best place that's for them.
For sure.
And that's why the fact that this higher education has become a business is a problem.
Yeah.
I posed a question to my Instagram followers last night, and I said, if you can go back to school and no money in mind, money doesn't matter in a perfect world, pretend it doesn't exist. Would you go back to school and what would you study and why? And a lot of people were I would absolutely go back to school. I would do this major. Like I said, I didn't have to worry about paying for it. I would do that. And it's just funny, how so many people are, not going after their dreams or their dream career because of how much it costs.
Right. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
It's so sad.
It is.
I'm I want to tell people, oh my God, you want that PhD in psychology? Go get it.
Absolutely.
I cannot do that. I cannot tell someone that in good faith.
Right. That's
sad.
No, it's very disheartening for sure. Very, very, very disheartening. Wow, man, what a great interview it's been so far. So, two more questions for you. This is the second to last question. How important is it for the next generation of college students to be aware of the amount of student loan debt they can find themselves in, and how can they go about educating themselves in advance?
Yeah, so I think it's super important. I think the more we talk about it, the more they can be educated, and I think that will really help because it's kind of we're the warning sirens. Don't do what we did. Right. Be aware of interest rates. Be aware of the schools and how much they're costing you. be aware of, job security in the field you're going into, salary or whatever, so that your life can go on the path that you want it to and not be delayed.
Yeah.
I don't think like the cycle can end, obviously with, higher education and loan providers and the government kind of working together, but I think for now, until they do, kids being educated and more aware and making these decisions, as to the best of their ability, I think can really help.
Yeah.
I think a way that we can do that is, do podcasts like this that are, informative, but also, powerful and motivating, to show people that, like, listen, it's not that you can't do it, it's that you have to do it in the way that's best for you, and that's not going to leave you, not being able to make rent because you have, like, all these student loans to pay.
No, without question.
Yeah, and I also think, again, like, being loud about the problem, because the more we talk about it, the more attention that will come to it. And, voting for lawmakers that really care about the issue and really want to change it. Because otherwise, nothing's ever going to change.
Without a doubt.
Because that's, DC, that's where shit happens.
Yeah.
So,
no, absolutely. For sure.
At the end of the day, just really, like, being vocal and sharing our stories.
No, for sure, absolutely. Man, that's excellent. So, side question, fun fact question. What made you decided to have a party at a park in the city, and have it be death themed in regards to your student loans? If you could just please give, because I don't think any of the media outlets, I mean, they touched upon it a little bit, but I just kind of want the listeners out there to understand your process, just in case, they might want to attend something creative in the future in that regards.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
When I was coming up on, quote-unquote, killing my loans,
I
wanted to celebrate in a big way. I realized it was like a huge accomplishment, and, I don't know, I just wanted to bring attention to, like, what I did and help people. And I had built up, like, a lot of resentment toward my loans. And so while I wanted to celebrate it, I also didn't want to lose the fact that, like, they're bad. Right? Because I feel like a lot of times when people celebrate paying off their debt, it's like there's balloons and, like, a party and everyone's like, yay! But then, like, everybody forgets that, like, hey, like, this is a bad, like, this shouldn't even be happening in the first place. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of, like, how I felt. So I felt like a funeral kind of, like, was able to be fun with it and say, like, hey, I did this, I killed them, but I killed them because they're bad. Like, I had to get them,
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's very creative, honestly. I think what you did in itself too was send a statement to the country, honestly, and just the higher education system in general in regards to, like, why should I have to have gone through all of this in order to even have this funeral party? You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly, yeah. So it's like, I don't know, it was like the best way I could think of to, like, capture the nuance of it, but I'm also just, like, a generally, like, extra person.
Right.
So it's a perfect storm.
For sure. Excellent. And my final question for you this evening, which is, so to anyone out there who is graduating, whether it be at the end of the semester, this semester right now, as we are days away to the end of this semester, or even the following semester, what would your advice be to those graduating with their bachelor's and their master's, and they're over, I don't know, I mean any number of debt, right? But let's say those who are over 75, 80K in debt. What would you say to those folks who are graduating and still haven't found a job as of yet, or they have found a job, they have been placed at a position, and they're trying to come up with a plan right now while they have that 6-month grace period until they start paying back off their loans? What would you say to them? What is the next step?
Yeah. So I would say like the job thing is really important. Like to get steady income, like, is so, so important. So whether it's in your field or just doing something that can pay the bills and cover the four walls, that's crucial. And the first thing I would say is to stash away an emergency fund, or are we allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I call it an oh fuck fund.
Okay.
So I think it's so important for people, especially post-grad, new grads, that are doing awesome, like they finished. Now they need to create this oh fuck fund so that if anything does happen, you know, over the course of their new careers, that they have money to fall back on, so that they don't have to miss too many loan payments or rent payments or whatever. I think that's so, so crucial. And then after that, I would say learn how to budget. Like, because if you can do that, you can do anything.
Right.
With an income and a budget, you can do anything, truly. So, and that just means sitting down, figuring out how much of a minimum the loans are going to cost, along with other expenses, and figuring out how to make this doable.
Right.
What can I do? What can I afford? What can I not afford? And then just working from there.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe over time you'll make more money. That's fine. But you do the best with what you have. But you just have to look at the numbers and know what you're working with. Because I hear it all the time. People are like, I'm afraid to look at my loans. I'm too scared. I don't want to deal with it. But the most empowering thing you can do, even with debt, is to look at it and know what you're dealing with, because then you can work to fix it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that would be my advice. Just look, make a plan. That's it.
Absolutely. Looking back just looking back over the last 6-7 years of your life, and seeing what you've accomplished in regards to crushing your student loan debt, and being where you're at right now in your life, where you're at a place where you can finally start breathing and thinking about all the marvelous, wonderful things you'll do in the future, both by yourself and as well as with your partner, and with your family by your side. Do you have any regrets looking back at it and what you went through in regards to your student loans?
My only regret is giving my mom grief when we first started looking at colleges. That would be my only thing, because she kind of had foresight with the whole debt thing. Yeah. She had a lot of student loans herself, and she didn't want me to fall into that same situation, and I fought her tooth and nail. Like, again, like I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the episode, I was like, I'll just go and figure it out later. And she was pregnant with my little sister at the time, and we had a huge fight the night before she went into labor with her over this. Wow. And so that would be my biggest regret. But otherwise, like I said, everyone's journey is their journey, including mine, and I learned a lot. I gained a lot, I lost a lot, and, that's life. Right,
for sure. Wow. Well, Mandy, on the behalf of Mark and I, thank you for coming on the show. I think we pretty much, Mark and I, he had some hand in crafting these questions as well. I think we pretty much asked you everything that we wanted to, and also, we want to be very respectful of your time. So, thank you for coming on the show and taking the time to do this. Fun fact, ladies and gents, I reached out to Mandy on LinkedIn, and I saw her there. I was like, wow. I was like, I'm going to just shoot my shot and see if she responds. And I think probably a week and a half prior, afterwards, she responded. When I say I lost my mind, I lost my mind. I was like, wow, did I really speak this to existence? And the universe is really responding to my dreams and wishes here. It'd be excellent to have you on the show. And then yeah, it was meant to be, for sure. And then when I, reached out to you by email, I honestly didn't think it was going to happen. You know how it goes, getting coverage from, a lot of these major media outlets, I would more than likely understand if you just saw my message and just kind of disregarded it or whatnot. But honestly, thank you so much, because again, our podcast, Mark and I, The Wise Guys, is geared towards driving self-improvement for our listeners in myriad types of topics. So this right here, I'm sure there is a wealth of abundance that they can take from this and apply it to their lives. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, thank you. This is such an important topic, and thank you to Mark, for the questions. I'm so sorry I couldn't have him here, but, you guys are doing great stuff, and I'm just, looking forward to the situation getting better.
Absolutely, for sure. So one thing I will say to you is, matter of fact, oh my gosh, Mandy, I'm so happy to have you on that I almost forgot about Mark and I's segment called Word to the Wise, where we leave the listeners with a word. Oh my gosh! Listeners, I apologize. I know you're probably screaming at me right now saying, no, what's her word? We want to know what her word is. Alright, so Mandy, let's wrap up with that now, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
So I'll go first, Mandy, because the protocol is that we always allow our guests to go last, so that way they can think of a word as the hosts are speaking. So my word to the wise today, let's see, wise community, my word to the wise today would be listen. I'm gonna just go off of a limb here and use the word listen. Mandy actually just touched upon this, recently, just in regards to the conversations she was having with her mom in regards to the student loans. Now, I don't think, I'm just going to make this very clear, listeners, wise community, I don't think Mandy was wrong, because again, as you just said, everyone has their own path, everyone has their own choices, me myself, I've had my own path, and I started out by going to a pretty decent sized school actually in Post University in Long Island, and then after being there for a semester because my mom was paying out of pocket, then I ended up transferring to Queensborough within the CUNY system, earning my associate's degree, and then after earning my degree pretty much free of charge because TAP paid for everything, then earning my bachelor's degree at Brooklyn College, where TAP also provided full coverage as well. So the reason why I bring that up, wise community, is because you need to do what works for you, and by listening to my mom, I was able to make a move and maneuver in a way in which it allowed me to prosper. Because had I stayed at Post, and I highly doubt, I'm just being honest, I highly doubt I would have been as vigilant and as diligent as Mandy in regards to paying off my student loan debt. I think I would have just been going by the motions in regards to paying it off. And I think had I stayed there, I think it was about 15-20K a year just being a student there. And obviously that interest rate, those interest rates in the debt would have accrued. So so just listen. It worked out for me. It didn't really work out for Mandy in a sense, but it eventually worked out in the end, if she would agree upon that. Yeah, for sure. And I know, even in reference to my sister's friend, I know a lot of people are hell-bent on listening because they don't, want to, compromise their dream career and that dream job and everything it is that they want in their lives. But sometimes it is best that you heed the advice of your parents, whether they've been to college or not, and whether you might be shunning them because you are uncertain of what they can actually tell you since they haven't done it. But listen, because you never know exactly, or maybe they have been in that same situation, right? Similar to Mandy's mom. But listen to them. Please listen, because you never know. Matter of fact, I'm gonna say you never know, but trust me, they do know exactly what it is that they're telling you, because they're the ones that's actually inputting the data and paying a monthly mortgage and paying all these bills. So your parents actually have a wise outlook in regards to your career, and as well as your scholarly academic career, and as well as your future outlook. So listen, even if you don't want to fully buy into it, take it with a grain of salt and do the research. All right, so listen and just do the research. Mandy, what's your word to the wise before we get out of here?
My word is budget. And I think that's really important because that kind of builds the foundation for financial habits moving forward, which can dictate everything from saving money to paying off debt to just feeling confident with it, and where you are in your life. And it also teaches discipline. And so that's not going to be my word, because whether you have, you're just looking for a job now or have a job, learning to work with what you have is just a skill that can translate to any part of your life.
Absolutely.
and I think that's important.
For sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was our show, okay? I probably didn't announce it at the beginning of the podcast because I was so excited. But this was episode 13, Young and Broke Part 3. And I think this is it. I think we'll end the series here. I think we got enough gems. Mandy, where can the Wise community find you online? Because every time we have guests that come onto the show, we want to make sure that we drive traffic towards your online socials so they can ask you further questions and give you their comments and give you their feedback and tell you how much they really appreciated your gems and your words.
Of course. So my Twitter handle is Mandy_Velez, V as in Victor, E-L-E-Z as in zebra. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Mandy Velez. So that's MandyVel. And on Instagram is where I tend to be more interactive as far as finances and student loan questions. You can follow me, you can ask me questions, DM me. I post a lot of prompts in my stories, and sometimes I just complain about stuff or give random advice. So if you're into that, follow me on Instagram.
For sure. You guys heard the lady. Be sure to do that. And Mandy, just to let you all know, we will also, when this episode officially airs, we will also tag Mandy on all of our socials, so that way you can also follow along for the ride as well. And Mandy, Mark, myself on our personal socials, and as well as our Wise Guys socials, we will follow you. Will you follow back?
Of course.
Excellent. Just wanted to put you on the spot. Excellent. So, ladies and gents, that's our show for today. Please be sure to leave a review for the podcast if you haven't already, okay? Please be sure to leave and listen and to, tune in, leave your reviews. We're all over the place. SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher Radio, wherever podcasts can be found. Currently, you could still find us on Instagram, please, at WiseGuysNYC, on Twitter, at WiseGuysNYC as well, and on Facebook. We have a Facebook page too, alright, at The Wise Guys NYC though, okay? So that one is at The Wise Guys NYC. And if you have any other questions about this episode, please be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section, please, questions, whatever your concerns are, or you can email us, okay? You can email Mark and I at wiseguysnyc@gmail.com. Once again, wiseguysnyc@gmail.com. Mandy, is there any last thing you want to add, or?
No, just stay wise, everybody.
Excellent. You know what's so crazy, Mandy? That's actually Mark's slogan at the end of the show. He usually says, "Stay wise." Yeah. Oh my gosh. Honestly, we'll try to figure out some way, whether in season 2, season 3, you back on, and we're going to talk about your passion and what you do in your career specifically, because we need this type of energy. People that know how to stay wise. That's excellent. That is really, really, really cool. Again, thank you so much for coming on. So, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is your boy, Kevin Anglade, and we are joined by our very special guest,
Mandy Velez.
And you have now been tuning in to the Wise Guys podcast. We'll see you all next week. And once again, shout out to Mark. Stay wise.